Dave Ward and Friends is proud to be supported by Sonic Automotive. My family has driven a Sonic Automotive car for 12 years, and I know they're the best in the business. Whether it's purchasing a new or pre-owned car or servicing your current vehicle, let Sonic Automotive be your trusted car guides. Start looking for your new car at soniccars.com. Well, Houston, we've been through a lot together. We started in radio 60 years ago. It was such a great gig, my father cautioned me against going into this thing called television, but we did it, and we had a pretty good run. We even went from black and white to color TV, then to high definition. I keep hearing about streaming and digital, and, well, it's a chance to reconnect with my friends and viewers and share stories from our times together throughout these last 6 decades. What do you say, Houston? Let's do this. Hello, friends. I'm Dave Ward, and welcome to Dave Ward and Friends, a series of casual conversations with people I have been real fortunate to meet over my 60 years of radio and television newscasting in Houston. And today we have a real treat. Let me introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Scott Kelly, the astronaut Scott Kelly and his wife, Amiko. Welcome to you both, and thank you for being with us here on Dave Ward and Friends. It's so good to see you and so good to talk with you. Scott, we all know you were a Navy pilot and an astronaut, and Amiko, you worked at NASA in public relations. Is that where the two of you met?
It's how we knew of each other. It's not where we met. We met in a bar.
A wine bar, not like a not in a beer bar.
Yeah, no.
What did you do at NASA, Amiko?
I was a NASA public affairs officer, so all things NASA public relations. Anywhere from writing for the web, I was an editor for the web. I managed their social media when that became a thing. And then I also did provided live commentary on NASA television from Mission Control Houston. So, yeah. A few things like that.
But that's not where the two of you met.
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, Dave, we knew each other for a long time, because we both worked there. She, of course, knew me because I was an astronaut. I knew her because she was in public affairs, but we were not very close. We weren't friends. She was more an acquaintance or friend with my brother Mark. And, it wasn't until, years after I guess you could say we first met, that we had both were actually in the process of getting divorced, and then met at a wine bar in Houston. I was there with a friend of mine, Robert Tiarina, and she was there with some of her work colleagues, and mutual friends, struck up a conversation, and that was 12 years ago, I think, almost.
Yep.
That's kind of like the way my wife Laura and I got together. We were both in the process of getting divorces when I emceed a charity event for her, and we got to talking and went out to dinner, and she's the love of my life, I'll tell you that. She truly is. You mentioned your brother, Mark, your twin brother. He is also, or was also, an astronaut. Did the two of you ever fly together?
No, we didn't. We actually had a chance when I was flying on my first long-duration flight, that when I was living on the space station, that he was going to come up and with a space shuttle as the commander of the mission, and we would have been in space at the same time. I guess you could say we would have flown together, but then, like a lot of those shuttle flights, they get delayed, and pretty soon it got delayed out of my increment. So, we've never had the privilege of meeting in space, but we've certainly had the extraordinary, opportunity to have this shared experience of being astronauts and flying in space, and being able to share that with your sibling, your twin brother, who you've known your whole life, is really extraordinary.
Well, I was down there at the Cape for the very first shuttle liftoff and the very last shuttle liftoff, and most of the flights in between. I was probably there when you took off on the shuttle. When was that?
Yeah, perhaps.
Can you tell us the date or about when?
Yeah, my first shuttle flight was December 20th, 1999 was the launch. It was a Hubble Space, maybe it was the 19th, Hubble Space Telescope repair mission. It was the one when Hubble was spinning out of control right before Y2K, so a little dramatic, a little science emergency going on, and we had to go up and rescue it. And then my second flight was on the shuttle. We launched sometime in August of 2007. Notable because it was the flight with Barbara Morgan on it. Was one of my crew members, and she was Krista McAuliffe's backup. So she was the Krista will always be the first teacher in space, but Barbara was the second, and she was great to fly with on their mission to the space station.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, I'm sure I was there for both of those shuttle launches and watched you take off and go straight up. What is it? Tell us, what is it like on liftoff?
It's like 7 million pounds of thrust hitting you in the back all at the same time instantly. There's it's instant acceleration. It is, it gets your attention. When you look at the shuttle, it looks like it's lifting off slowly, but when you're inside, there is nothing slow about it. You get the feeling you're going somewhere. You're not sure where you're going, but you're not coming back to Florida. And in 8.5 minutes, you're flying around in space. I tried to explain to my brother what the launch was like, because I flew in space a couple of years before he did. So I had about 2 years to prepare him for it. And he, as soon as he got back and the hatch opened, I was standing right outside the hatch, and the first thing he said to me was, I had no idea what that launch was going to be like. So basically, it's kind of hard to really describe exactly what it's going to be like, but it's kind of like being an ant or a bug or something on a bottle rocket.
I was down there at the Cape for, so many launches, and I'll never forget one back in the Gemini program, which used the Titan II rocket, which had liquid fuel. And when they were combined, they immediately exploded and the rocket took off. There was one flight and I don't remember who the astronauts were, but when it got down to zero, one of the rocket nozzles gimbaled too far and it immediately shut itself down. There was no liftoff, no nothing. Well, there was a guy there representing 4 or 5 Florida radio stations. And as you know, NASA gives you down to the second everything that's going to happen in a flight and a launch. This guy had written out a script, and he was reading from his script, 3, 2, 1, ignition and liftoff, and the Gemini Titan flies high into the beautiful Florida blue skies. And then he looks up, and that rocket hadn't moved. Well, we were all standing there wondering, what's this guy going to say next? He goes, oh, 2 giant hands just reached up and pulled the rocket back down on the launch pad. I never saw that guy at any other launch since then. He broke everybody up. That was
the original fake news, right?
Yeah, there you go. Let me ask you guys, where do you live now?
We live outside of Denver, in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Yeah.
In Colorado.
Yeah, Denver,
How's
Colorado.
The weather
Yeah.
out there?
It's
Snowing.
incredible. It snowed today. We got a few inches, but like this weekend it'll be 70 degrees. So
It was 70 yesterday.
yeah, yesterday was 70. It's great. I mean, don't tell anybody that it's so nice here. We don't. Us Coloradans don't want too many people moving here. But the weather is, even all winter, it's fantastic.
Well, down here
and summer.
it's been like 80 degrees and raining off and on, and humid. But
Yeah.
you know Houston weather.
Yes.
Well,
You know,
let
I
me
used to
ask
say about
when,
so Dave, like I used to say Houston when people would ask me about it, I'd say Houston has 2 seasons, summer and February.
yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's true. Amiko, what was it like
Yes.
when Scott was up at the International Space Station for so long? What, you were up there about a year, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a party every day.
No. um, you know, I was fortunate in that I did have some experience with that because we were together on his mission that was before that for 6 months. So I had a little trial run to see how that year was going to be, and I kind of knew what I was getting into. You know, it had a lot of ups and downs, and you know, tensions and surprises and excitement and joy and all of that. It's a mix of emotions, and you just do it day by day, you know?
You two were able to talk with each other every day, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think from my perspective, because of the fact that I worked at NASA, I was able to see him every day, whereas he wasn't necessarily able to see me. In fact, he actually ordered one day online from the computer a selfie stick and had it delivered to the house because he said, you know, I never get to see you, so take more pictures. But I could see him on the, you know, our cameras. They were in mission control. I would hear from him, but as far as communicating, we could email each other. It was almost real time. He could call me, you know, and we did that pretty much every day.
Would a cell phone work from the International Space Station?
Not through like cell data, because these cell phones, yeah, they use cell towers, and our communication on the space station goes through a satellite from a called an S band or KU band antennas. So it's a different frequency, but the cell phone itself would work in like airplane mode or on Wi-Fi. So you would yeah, so you could use it like for taking pictures or listening to music, but you wouldn't be able to use it to make a call.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if you had an Iridium satellite, which some people have Iridium satellite phones, you might be able to use that for a very short period of time, maybe. But no, a cell phone wouldn't work. But the communication we had was good. I mean, it was through a laptop like this. You could make phone calls, weekend video calls, email. So you felt pretty well connected.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but I grew up during World War II, and I have been a fanatic about reading everything I could about World War II and what happened. I understand from your book that your father was in the Navy and served on a destroyer during World War II. Where was he, in the Atlantic or the
Yeah.
Pacific?
My father's father, was in the Pacific Ocean on a
Yeah,
destroyer.
your grandfather, that's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He didn't talk about it a whole lot, other than you know the living conditions a little bit. But he wasn't like he didn't tell like war stories or anything. I'm kind of sorry he didn't. I would have loved to get to know him. Dave, were you from Houston originally?
Well, no, I have to admit I was born in Dallas, but don't tell anybody that. I grew up in Huntsville, just up north of here,
Okay.
and I got a chance to get in radio in Tyler when I went to junior college up there because my parents were living in Jacksonville, Texas. That's where I graduated high school. Got in radio in Tyler, then went to Waco, spent 2 years in Waco, then came to Houston in 1962 and worked at KNUZ Radio for those 4 years and went to work at Channel 13 in 1966. I was very fortunate in covering a lot of the space program and a lot of the shuttle flights, and I'm sure I was there for at least one, maybe both, of your shuttle liftoffs down there.
At Sonic Automotive, we went from happy guests to happy owners. I felt right at home during the whole process, if my home only had a bigger garage for all those cars. Sonic Automotive has 13 stores in the Houston area, providing you 10 vehicle brands for new sales and services. Visit soniccars.com to find your new car. Dave Ward and Friends is proud to be supported by Sonic Automotive. Let Sonic Automotive be your trusted car guys. Visit soniccars.com to find the location near you.
Tell us, what is it like being weightless with no gravity at all?
It makes, it's fun. Floating is fun. It makes most things, the absence or microgravity makes most things harder to do because you can't put anything down. You got to be very organized and make sure all your stuff is put away or secured. So imagine, doing any kind of activity where you have more than two things. You can't just you either hold them in your hand or you have to secure them somewhere. So it makes most things more complicated. A few things are easier, like, moving heavy objects because they no longer have weight. They still have mass. You still have to be careful when they're really heavy because you could, damage something. But you can move around things that weigh thousands of pounds, by yourself. You can also get yourself into unusual positions that make doing some work easier. Like, imagine sometimes when you're trying to hook up something behind your TV, it's always hard because you can't get your hand or your arm around the right position. In space, that's easy, but everything else is harder, including sleeping, I think, is harder. But it's fun.
It's difficult to sleep in a weightless condition?
Yeah, we're used to sleeping with the pressure of a blanket and your head on the pillow. I mean, we like pressure so much that now there's this weighted blanket that you can buy. And in space, you might be in a sleeping bag, but you don't have any kind of pressure on you. So, maybe, if you live there or evolved in space, I think it'd be more comfortable. But our whole, human history evolved living and sleeping in gravity. So it's almost like we're, our physiology is designed for that.
I remember reading in your book, when you got back to Earth, you went to dinner, and I think with Amiko, and you had a hard time putting down your fork because you kept looking for Velcro or something to put that fork on.
Yeah.
It is really different.
Yeah, stuff can get away from you up there.
How did that year in space affect you physically?
Well, physically, when I came back, I had some, physical ailments, I guess you might call them, swelling of my legs and feet and rashes on, different pressure points on my body because my body had not had any pressure on it for such a long time. You're tired because you lose blood mass and, red blood cells. It takes those a while to get back. Your, joints are sore. You might be nauseous because of the, coming back into a gravity field affects your vestibular system, dizziness. But those subside after, a few months. As far as permanent changes, I do have some genetic changes that occurred while I was in space. With regards to gene expression, what that means is we don't really know what kind of physiological impacts that will have. There's some changes in my vision, in my eyes, some structural changes, but that doesn't seem to have any effect on my visual acuity. So I would say, despite any of the challenges coming back, I'm completely beyond having any kind of symptoms from that.
Yeah. Well, you and your brother Mark were unique. You were twins, and it's my understanding that NASA studied him physically and studied you physically while you were in orbit and while he was here on the Earth, in a 1G environment. Mm-hmm. Were there differences?
Yeah, I think the most significant are that I am now smarter and more handsome than my brother Mark. But beyond that, there were, like they said, the genetic changes. There was an experiment on my telomeres that were pretty interesting. Our telomeres are the ends of our chromosomes, and as we age, they get shorter and more frayed. It's kind of an indication of our physical age. And the hypothesis was that, me in space with the radiation, the microgravity, the stress, all these kind of, negative kind of impacts on your body, that my telomeres would have gotten shorter, in other words, older as compared to him on Earth. After the mission, we were surprised they actually got better. So mine were better than his were. I went in the direction of younger from a genetic perspective. And, initially they thought maybe that's diet or exercise. You do a lot of exercise, diet's very controlled. But then, about 6 months after I got back, NASA learned that the Japanese space agency had an experiment on the space station at the very same time on these little worms on their telomeres, and their telomeres got better too. And I never once saw those guys working out on the treadmill or lifting weights or anything. So clearly more to this story than we understand.
Yeah, really. Several years ago, I had a chance to sit down with 4 Apollo astronauts, 3 of whom walked on the moon. And Laura gave me the best question that I had for that entire interview. I asked him, what was your favorite moon food? And they had different answers. Alan Bean said his was the spaghetti, and he was afraid the other guys would have eaten all the spaghetti before he made his flight. But he said when he got that spaghetti on the moon, it was terrible. He hated it. But, the guy on Apollo 13, the one that did not land on the moon, but managed to get back to the Earth.
Jim Lovell?
Was that Lovell?
Yeah, Lovell, probably. He was the commander.
Well,
Jim,
yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was saying, you guys talking about your moon food, all I had was a frozen hot dog that they had on their way back, and it was a miracle that we got Apollo 13 back here on the Earth. So, what was your favorite space station food?
Oh my God. If space food was really good, we would have restaurants. Our friend Tillman would have owned restaurants called Space Food, right? But space food isn't good, so there are no space food restaurants. I would say there was this one dehydrated breakfast granola thing that I'd probably eat for breakfast here. There was a barbecue beef on a tortilla that wasn't bad, but other than that, I don't miss it.
And you couldn't drink a cup of coffee?
Out of a bag, you could.
Out of a bag?
Yeah.
What is it like during reentry? Is it different in the space shuttle from when you come back from the space station?
Yeah, the space shuttle and the Soyuz, which is a capsule like, SpaceX is or like Apollo was, it's a different technology. They come back in a similar way in a big picture perspective. They fire their deorbit engines, slow down a few hundred miles an hour, and then friction with the atmosphere slows both vehicles down the same way. But the space shuttle is like an airplane, even though it doesn't have any fuel, doesn't have any engines operating. But it's much, much more complicated and sophisticated. You get the sense that it's a lot more risky, I think, than the Soyuz, although how the Soyuz appears during entry is much more medieval than the space shuttle. Space shuttle is more like driving like a Rolls Royce down Park Avenue. The Soyuz is more like going over Niagara Falls in a barrel, but while you're on fire. And as soon as you realize you're not going to die, most fun you've ever had in your entire life. Parachute opens, thrown around like crazy. If I hated being in space for a year, I'd do it all over again for the last 20 minutes. It's the best ride. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
But, space shuttle challenge, especially when you're landing it, it's definitely gets your attention on the the magnitude and the seriousness of what you're doing.
You landed back at Cape Kennedy, did you not?
Yeah.
And would it land just like an airplane?
No, it's got some really negative flying qualities. There's like a time delay in the what's called the longitudinal axis. So, like if you pull back on the stick, nothing really happens for 180 milliseconds, which is a really long time in an airplane control system. The flies a really, it's a glider, so it has to manage its energy a certain way. So that's a really steep approach initially. The stick, works in pitch around the bottom of your hand, but in roll, you're going like this. So it's not a very kind of harmonious design. It's really big. It's a big vehicle, weighs a lot. It rotates around a point that's kind of in front of the space shuttle. So, initially, if you want to like raise the nose, the wheels go down, and that can make you touch down. So it's got a lot of peculiarities of its, flying qualities and performance. And the other thing that makes it challenging to land is you're tired. You've been in space for a while. There's physiological effects of, you could have like some orthostatic intolerance where you think you might, be graying out or passing out a little bit. The gravity affects your visual acuity a little bit. Your eyes can play some funny tricks on you. And then like the whole world is watching you, including your colleagues that will absolutely humiliate you if you have a bad landing. So there's a lot of pressure,
Amiko,
especially from your brother.
Let me ask
Yes.
Amiko, have you ever flown with Scott? Has he ever flown
Nope.
in an airplane, flown you in an
Only
airplane?
in a commercial flight.
Not in an airplane by yourselves?
Nope. Nope.
Well, that's
No,
something.
I don't
Not
do
yet.
much flying.
Yeah.
I don't do much flying outside of the government. I've never done that. It's always just been my job versus some kind of hobby or passion.
Yeah.
I would though. I'll tell you that. It's kind of funny because we traveled a lot when he came back from his UN space, and of all the planes that we were on, if there's any kind of turbulence or anything, I just look at him, and if he's just still kind of sleeping or doesn't seem to be bothered at all, I'm like, I'm safe. I'm good.
Well,
It's only when he starts looking at the cockpit that I start to worry.
when I was in Waco, this would have been in 1961, I was making enough money where I felt I could afford to take flying lessons out at Waco Municipal Airport. And I did, and I got my pilot's license. I learned how to fly in a little 65 horsepower Aranca Champ, which is like a Piper Cub, one seat in front, one seat in back, a stick and a throttle, and that was no flaps. There was no radio. When we lined up to take off, you'd just face the airplane toward the control tower, and they'd shoot you a red or a green light. If it's a red light, you wait. If it's a green light, bang, take off. My instructor was a guy named Howard Basinger. He weighed about 350 pounds. And with him in the back seat of that little plane, he always told me, David, when you get on the runway, accelerate, lift the tail wheel as quickly as you can to keep from wearing it out. And then when you reach flying speed, lift off to about 10 feet, level off, and when you reach flight enough speed to gain altitude, set up a rate of climb. Well, I did that, and after about 7 hours of dual instruction, Howard got out on me and said, "You take it around." And I thought, "Oh my God, it'll be my solo flight." And
Different airplane without the 350-pound
that's just what I was going to tell you. I got out on the runway, hit the throttle, lifted the tail wheel, and that little airplane just leaped off the ground. I had not realized before what that 350-pound guy in the back seat would mean. I flew the pattern, came back, and landed. And Scott, I got to tell you, I made the only perfect three-point landing I ever made in my whole flying school and learning. But I got my pilot's license, And after that, I really didn't fly any other airplanes. Ended up flying a Cessna 172 for a while in my final instructions. But being in the radio and television news business, I got a chance to fly in a number of high-speed jet aircraft. Did you? I flew with the Blue Angels 3 times. Did you ever think about being a Blue Angel?
No, never interested in being really. I wanted to be a test pilot and an astronaut, and that seemed like the career path for me, and it worked out pretty well. So, yeah, never really had an interest. I've flown the F-18. I was checked out in the Hornet when I was a test pilot at Pax River. But yeah, those guys do a great job. They're incredible pilots. Certainly better than the Thunderbirds because they're Navy.
I agree. But
you just say to those Air Force guys, you just say, "Hey, who was the first American in space? Alan Shepard, Navy guy. Who was the first guy to step foot on the moon? Neil Armstrong, Navy guy.
Yep.
Who was the first commander of the space shuttle? John Young, Navy guy. Yep. Who was the first commander of the space station? Bill Shepard, Navy guy. Where are all those Air Force guys? I don't know."
I don't know either. You got me there. They're on a runway 3 miles long somewhere, I guess. Oh, boy. Who was an astronaut first, you or your twin brother, Mark?
We were in the same astronaut class, but I flew in space before him, so I guess you'd say me. And I flew last. I flew first, last, and longest.
Who was first to want a career path in the Navy and as an astronaut, you or Mark?
I would say me, but I was behind him by a year in college, so he was actually in the Navy a year before me. But I think it was my idea. He might argue with you.
I can't tell you how thrilling I am to have you guys on. And I got to remind you of one thing. Several years ago, at the annual Crime Stoppers fundraising dinner, that was where they announced that they were naming their new building, the Crime Stoppers headquarters building, in my honor. They named it the Dave Ward Building. And they had, our main speaker was Ted Koppel with ABC News then. And then they come up with video, a greeting from President George H.W. Bush, then a greeting from Barbara Bush, and then a greeting from Scott Kelly from the International Space Station that we had right there on that screen in that ballroom. Scott, you could have knocked me over with a feather. I'll never forget that, never as long as I live. That tribute from you in space really meant more to me than George and Barbara Bush talking up there. It was just wonderful.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Laura. Dave, I'm sorry I can't be there in person tonight to celebrate with you, as you are being recognized by Crime Stoppers of Houston for your years of support of their organization. As you can see, I'm sending my congratulations tonight from aboard the International Space Station, where I'm a little over halfway through my one-year mission. The ISS is an incredible platform to help us expand our knowledge of the universe, gain new perspectives on our own planet, and bring tangible benefits back to Earth. I've always known of your commitment to law enforcement, Dave, but had no idea of the depth of your commitment to Crime Stoppers over these past 34 years. The time and energy that you put in speaks to the passion you have for their mission. It's wonderful to see how many crimes have been solved in the Houston community because of your dedication to the cause. I'm thrilled to be a part of this evening for you. Laura and the entire Houston community and I just want to say I'm proud of you, my friend. I was proud of you before I knew about this honor, and I'm even more proud today. For those of you who don't know, Dave was the only reporter to cover the very first and very last Space Shuttle launch, and has been incredibly supportive of NASA and the Johnson Space Center throughout his career. He has interviewed more astronauts than any other reporter in Houston. He has always been there for us, and I'm happy to be here for him today. Keep up the good work, Dave. Houston loves you. Crime Stoppers loves you. And everyone is grateful to your commitment to this great cause. Have a great evening, everyone.
Is there any chance you and Amiko might get back to Houston anytime soon?
Yeah, we, now that I wouldn't say the pandemic is over.
Yeah.
But I think as more people get vaccinated and, more, we have less number of cases, certainly we love Houston. We have many friends there. We will be back, and probably shouldn't be too long in the future.
Do me a favor. Let me know when you two are going to be here, because Laura and I would love to take you out to dinner. Can we do that?
Well, we'd love that, Dave.
All right.
Yeah, that's great.
Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This has been an Academy Award winning show for me, I'll tell you. I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much. And whatever is next for you two, God bless you. I really appreciate you being here with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Sure.
Thanks, Dave.
Love to Laura too.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
And hi to all of our friends in Houston.
Yeah, you got it. And thank you for watching Dave Ward and Friends.
Buckle your seatbelts, friends. You won't believe the VIP perks that Sonic Automotive is offering you. $500 cash toward a new vehicle, $250 cash toward a pre-owned vehicle, 25% off any repair or service, and more. Thank you, Sonic Automotive, for being the official sponsor of the Dave Ward and Friends podcast. To see the VIP perks they're offering my friends, visit soniccars.com.